how do we maintain keeping Idaho while still having this rapid influx of growth and starting your own brokerage? So you're doing fix and flips.
Yep.
You're selling real estate. I'm sure friends and family is kind of where everyone has to start at.
Yep.
How did that evolution kind of happen and take place? You return home from serving your mission, go to Boise State. Today on the 1% podcast, we are honored to have Brett Hughes with us. Brett is the owner and founder of Boise Premier Real Estate. He's a real estate agent here in the Boise market, focusing on luxury real estate. He also, in addition to owning his brokerage, has done a number of joint venture projects in building and in development. Brett is involved in all things sports, has 4 kids that keep him very busy, and his wife, Meg. They live here in Eagle, Idaho, and we are excited to have Brett Hughes on the podcast with us today. Okay, Brett Hughes, thank you for being here. Appreciate you coming on with us today. I think maybe even how you and I met is maybe an interesting way of jumping into starting the conversation. At some point we're going to talk about what are things that you feel like the agents can do to be successful, or anyone in business, and how you build a network. But you and I just met through a friend, Eric Cafferty, training at the gym. We both use the same trainer, and I don't even remember exactly how it happened. I don't remember if you came up to me or if Eric introduced us or whatever, but
I had heard your name a few times, and Eric's like, have you met Cam yet? And I'm like, I don't think I have. And then it was like the next week I saw you doing something, and you had your AirPods out or something. I'm like, all right, I'm going to talk to him real quick.
Yeah. But we just kind of started chatting and became friends, and turned out we had a ton in common, and we both have sons the same age. And so then all of a sudden it was like,
yeah, and then we saw you at basketball
everywhere,
games.
because it's like basketball games, football stuff, 7-on-7 stuff. Like, our circles were really intertwined a lot deeper than we even may have realized at the time. So, Brett's been a great friend. Grateful to have you come on the show with us today. So, for those of you that don't know Brett owns Boise Premier Real Estate. He's a realtor, owns a brokerage, and does land development stuff as well in addition to that. So let's maybe talk about that. Let's start back, rewind back to the beginning, the early days of Brett Hughes. Where were you born at? Where were you raised? Kind of tell us about your family dynamics and what all that looked like growing up for you.
Yeah, so my parents were divorced when I was young, and we moved to Boise. And then my mom got remarried. We moved to Boise.
Okay. So how young were you?
5 or 6.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think I went to I went to first grade at Adams Elementary.
Okay.
Back where the Adams athletes.
Oh yeah.
They changed it. Now it's something else. I don't know what it is. But we grew up kind of like off of Warm Springs, down in the downtown Boise, and it is such a cool area because you kind of have like all demographics located. And at my church, I remember we had like really, really rich people. We had really, really poor people, and it was so fun to kind of just like see how they all ticked. Like, we had some people who would like go on vacations for like 9 months and like cruise the entire world. And then we had others that were struggling to, just provide on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. So I felt like it was a fantastic childhood because you just saw so much variety. Yeah,
that's cool. So the dynamic with your family, if you don't mind kind of jumping into that. So your parents were divorced when you were young. You split custody between both houses? You primarily lived with your mom?
Yeah, my dad just flat out took off. And it was really weird because, so then we moved back with my grandparents in Salt Lake for a while, which I'm sure was terrible for my mom, but it was fantastic for us. We're watching Utah Jazz games, unlimited popcorn. It was great. But, it's one of those things where you can't stay there forever. She's got to get her life going again. So when she remarried, but that's when we moved to Boise with my stepdad. Okay. So it was me and my brother at the time. And it's funny because we kind of have a different way of looking at it, but I guess we were absolute punks. I didn't realize it, but at one point we had spit on him. And I'm like, really? I did that? But I do remember having this felt like I was the man of the house at 6 years old.
And your brother younger than you or older than you?
Younger.
Okay, so you kind of felt hey,
yeah, Mom, we got this.
This is my mom, this is my brother, we got this.
Yeah, what are we doing? And it's 6-year-old mind has a little bit of there's some holes there.
Yeah, yeah. So the relationship with your stepdad, talk about that. How did that work out? Your family dynamic that way?
It's funny. It almost gets better as the years go on, right? So at first, he didn't have any kids. When you jumpstart into a family, that cannot be easy. you learn how to raise a 6-month-old because you had a 6-month-old, you know. But when you get tossed like two kind of rough kids, right off the bat, it's not easy. So he was very strict, and at the time I did not appreciate it. But looking back at it, it was fantastic. Like it really gave us structure, and it really like taught us like we have a schedule now. You know, like this isn't willy-nilly anymore. You know, so but as they had children, like my stepbrother Dustin, who's just my brother, of course, and my sister Amber, he kind of started softening up, and then it became like even better. And even now, like
so you have two half siblings as well. Okay.
Yep.
So you and your brother, and then you have two younger half siblings.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it was just one of those things like he was really, they were all really strict, but we couldn't wear shorts to school, which was just one of those things where you're like, come on, we're the only kids, the only dorks who can't wear shorts to school.
Yeah.
But
I feel like my 14-year-old son doesn't wear anything but shorts to school. So yeah.
Yeah. But it was not professional enough for like the learning environment. And
Okay.
I'm like, but then my two younger siblings, they're like, what? You couldn't wear shorts to school? We
did whatever we wanted.
we did whatever we wanted to. But like I said, like I'm not complaining about it. It's just funny because as a parent, I know how many mistakes I make now. And it was just and also when you have some like wild kids, you probably need to rein them in the best you can. So let's try
Finding
everything
small
we
ways
can.
to have some structure and
Yeah.
build some discipline. So you were raised here. So you lived in Boise, went to Boise High School, graduated from there. What did life look like after you graduated from high school?
Yeah. So I had the most fantastic friends in high school. Like I just feel like that is like such a key element, you know, and we had so much fun. We did so many like good things, bad things, dumb things, but in the end, we all went on missions for our church, which was just a really great structure for us. And then at that point, you know, we all went different places.
And where'd you serve your mission at?
So I went to Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Yeah, which was really fun just to see. We saw so many things in Washington, D.C. I didn't know even existed in America. Like just even like the ghettos that I served in for quite a while.
Yeah.
Just absolute like blocks and blocks and blocks of abandoned places.
Highest crime rated city in America, right?
Yep. Yeah. And at the time, it was the murder capital of the world. And people like police officers would literally stop us and say like, "What are you dumb kids doing here?" We're like, "We actually live here," and they would never believed you. They're like, they thought we were like University of Maryland kids, like coming down to check out the ghetto or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was a really fun experience.
What are things that you felt like you learned or gained from your mission? Obviously, like the cultural experience of seeing somewhere that's much different than Boise, Idaho would have been in the late 90s.
Yeah, 90s. Yep.
What were other things that you took away from or learned from your mission experience?
You know, the biggest thing I learned was like this has been a huge strength to me, but also I always kind of felt like you could be the determiner of your own future, and I believe that. I still believe that. But when you were brought up where they were brought up, and with the circumstances they were brought up in, that is really, really tough. Yeah. Like that determining factor of like your willpower it's still there, of course, but you have not been taught very well. You have no surroundings. You have no real peer mentors. You have no male peer mentors, hardly at all, that are trying to help or provide you a better life. One of the most wild things was there was people that lived about 2 miles from all of the cool stuff, like the museums, the Washington Monument, everything. They call it the mall. They had never been. And some of them were like 30 years old. Some were 70 years old. They had never been. And all they would have had to do was either walk or just get on a bus and go somewhere. But they stayed in the same like 8 to 10 block radius forever. And I just thought to myself, like, it was just interesting because it did kind of like shatter a lot of the thoughts I had on like success and like just that anyone can make this happen. You can, but man, there's some determining factors that are awfully challenging.
Yeah, yeah. And I think to a certain extent, each of us deal with those in our own lives, right?
Yeah.
Like one of the biggest detractors that I see from people being willing to make those next steps in their life to improve is often they care about what their friends and family think. And if you come from a family of people that haven't achieved or haven't taken big risks or haven't done anything like of note, they've just kind of followed the status quo and they didn't chase their dreams. Or you have friends or other people that chose not to do things like, oh, well, you know, look at Brett, he's trying to do this or he's trying to be something else, or you think you're better than us, or your family's not good enough for you, or, you know, right? Yeah. Like people, he thinks he's better. Like that is a real thing that a lot of people struggle with, right? It's like that analogy with you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket, none of them will escape, not because they can't, but because all the other ones will pull the one down that does try to. And limiting self-beliefs and taking on the identity of the people that you surround yourself with is a real thing.
100%.
So, okay, so you return home from serving your mission, go to Boise State.
Yep.
I'm guessing I didn't know that right off the bat, but maybe you did go to Boise State right off the bat. Okay.
Yeah, and that was it. It's so funny. My daughter's at BYU right now, and she is studying like crazy. Like, she's working hard. I could work full time and go to school full time. Like, Boise State in like the early 2000s was not that hard. You know what I mean? Like, which was good because I was not focused on school whatsoever. Like, I'd already started like flipping some homes, and I was starting to work with some buyers and sellers.
Okay.
So school, I really didn't want to graduate, but I knew my wife was going to graduate.
Okay.
And I also want to be the first person in my family to do it, kind of like set a good example. You know, like my stepdad, that is, was he was a radiation technologist, so he was, he had to get his degree and everything like that. But my mom never did, and like really no one else in my family had. So it was definitely kind of the exception.
Yeah.
But it was a struggle the whole time just to stay focused. I loved the classes when I was there, but I always felt like, oh my gosh, I could go out and find another deal right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So you and Meg met when and how? What did that?
We met in 2001, and it was just kind of random, but she actually just came to my house. So we invited a friend of mine. She's like, I have a friend in town. Do you think I can invite her? And this friend, her name's Katie. She is so nice, but she could bring the most random people. And I'm like, oh, great, we'll see. And then when Megan rolled in, I was like, oh, okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad I agreed to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we kind of just, like, from then it was like we hung out almost all the time. And then we were, I think it was, let's see, we dated for a year, and then we got married 6 months later, so a year and a half from when we met.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Meg's from here. You guys chose to...
She's from Portland.
Okay.
Yep.
That's right. I knew that.
Yeah.
So Meg's from Portland. She was here going to school or visiting, or...
She was at BYU, and it was during a break.
Okay.
Yeah, during like the winter during like the winter break.
So you guys ultimately chose to stay here. How did that transition happen with you getting into real estate? Sounds like you were already getting into deals and stuff when you were in college. Talk to us about how you got into the business in the first place and what that evolution through from starting out as a brand new agent. Sounds like you were like in your early 20s to eventually working yourself up to owning your own brokerage.
Yeah, I'd always been truly obsessed with like wealth and success as a kid, and like we were definitely like pretty solid middle class, which was great. My parents had the same jobs for 35 years. They are the definition of like steady. Like I love it. They're just literally like their routines are just so in stone. You can't break them. Like that's what's really awesome about them. But they don't have a lot of risk-taking capabilities. So I was always obsessed with like, how do people make money? Like, how do they do this? But we had mentors all around who were willing to talk about it. So I was always reading different things, but I actually responded to a newspaper ad, and it basically said something to the effect of like, how would you like to buy a house but have your renters pay for it? I'm like, just call the guy up, like, and so that guy, his name was Creed. Creed showed me he was just about maybe 6 or 7 years older, and he had already accumulated like 40 or 50 rentals in that time period, which I could not believe. And in fact, Creed and I are actually like super good friends. I rep him on projects now, and I'm selling some triplexes for him. So it's kind of, and he works at my brokerage. So it's really fun that way. But so anyways, he showed me how to buy my very first duplex, and then it just became so much fun. Like I was realizing, I'm like, man, I'm living in this pretty cool place, not paying rent, and I basically have to pay $150 a month, where my friends are paying almost $1,000 a month to live in like this house or just rent something, And I just kind of felt like we were like hacking the system.
Yeah.
People are like, how can you go out to dinner and pay for your schooling and all this stuff? And I'm like, man, my expenses are really low. And real estate was amazing because after we bought the first duplex, then we started just buying these little fix and flips in Nampa and Meridian, and we just kept multiplying that. So, and I was doing that as I was going to school. So I'd like go to class and then quickly get my clothes on to go paint or go fix some stuff.
So you're putting in a lot of sweat equity yourself on a lot of these projects.
Yeah, and we were terrible at it. Terrible. Like every attention to detail that you would need to be like a good carpenter, we did not have. My partner and I. Sure. Then we realized quickly we needed to just hire that stuff out.
Okay.
get better margins.
Yeah, yeah. So you start out just doing fix and flip stuff, buying a triplex. Eventually, like how did that evolution continue as you went on? Eventually, kind of getting more into the luxury market and starting your own brokerage. So you're doing fix and flips.
Yep.
You're selling real estate. I'm sure friends and family is kind of where everyone has to start at.
Yep.
How did that evolution kind of happen and take place? And then, I guess, as you continue to build your portfolio, what did that look like as you toured on?
That was the fun part about it, was like we kind of had like a vision in place. Like I knew exactly where I wanted to be. So we just kept buying. So at first we'd probably have to fix and flip. We'd keep every other one, but my goal was to keep them all, because that was what I saw that was going to really work. Like the people who had made a lot of money and built a lot of wealth, they didn't sell anything.
Yeah.
But I needed to, just to kind of get that capital to get going.
For sure.
Yep. So then we started buying fourplexes, which was a fantastic move. And then from there, we started just doing these one-time lot splits in Boise, which is basically just buy a house that you can actually split a lot off of it. So we researched the night before. We'd find like 10 or 15 of them that would work or likely work. And then we would just knock those doors the next day until we got a hold of all of them. And it was actually really effective, like, because there's not that many people.
You're just literally just walking down the street, knocking on people's doors. And
Yep. But it was only a
offering to
list
buy
of
their
like,
house.
say there's a list of like 10 that worked, right? So we'd hit a particular area and we knew that it was going to fit the zoning, it was going to fit the exact specifications we needed. So we knew that they could split it, whether they did or not, who knows. But we're only going to hit those 10 houses. So we just, we'd hit them, leave a note, come back, or after lunch, come back again and try to talk to those people.
Yeah.
So that was basically the plan.
And how were you structuring these deals? Did you do, hey, like we're going to buy you out cash, you had financing in place, you're doing a owner finance deal? Like how did you structure some of those? I mean, especially when you're young, right? Like,
Yep.
And our podcast kind of targeted at people that are looking at growing and elevating and becoming a 1%, right? Like in their industry.
Yep.
How did you do that?
So the first one, we screwed up so bad. Like, even though I was in real estate, but I didn't know actually how everything works. So we bought it, got a loan on it, okay? We split it, and then when I was going to sell the lot, the bank's like, you're not selling that lot, because it was all encumbered, right? And I'm like, wait, no, I split it. You guys just keep this as your collateral. They're like, that's not how it works.
We went all,
So anyways, we had to sell them both at the same time, which I did not want to do. So the next time, we basically used a guy. His name was Dale. He's a fantastic guy, like an old guy who owned a gravel pit, and he gave us a hard money loan, and the hard money loan was terrible, but it enabled us to
terrible
do
in
that.
terms of the rate you were paying on it.
Rate, points,
Yeah.
And then he also had this really funny thing that he would do where you had to keep it for 6 months, but you couldn't keep it for 12. And I don't think he would have ever like foreclosed on us, but he threatened it. You know what I mean? So it's like you had to like get these things done in a perfect timing.
You're like, okay, I don't want to do that again.
Yes.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do what you got to do. So that's kind of how we got started, was a combination of hard money loans and then also just kind of utilizing people like investors who were interested. We did kind of seller financing is awesome when you can get it, but I've only used it a few times.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as you would move forward with these deals, as you kind of became more sophisticated, if you're trying to split lots off a single one, maybe talk through that process and what you guys found and how you're able to make that work. And I'm sure you've probably done that other times in your career of, hey, you go buy a piece of real estate and then you want to split it. And I'm sure that probably segued into your development arm of your business.
Yeah, it totally did. But it's funny, like when you have good success doing one, I remember this one we bought on Cascia, right next to Cascia Park, okay? And the listing agent said the price was like $200, and it was like kind of overpriced at the time. I mean, I'm dating myself. Right?
Yeah, well, I was gonna ask you like what years is this taking place?
This is like 2004 or so. And I wrote a full price offer, and he's like, "You sure don't want to negotiate?" I'm like, he was literally trying to he's like, "Come on, dummy, like, are you sure?" I'm like, "No, it's fair price." And then we literally split the thing, and I sold the lot itself for $110, and then I sold the house for like $190. And he calls up and he's like, "This is ridiculous. I can't." And I'm like, "I paid you exactly what you wanted."
Yeah.
He's like, "Well, I didn't know it was splittable." And I'm like, "You're an agent. They're the seller. You guys should have figured that out. Like, I don't feel bad about this, And it was just like one of those things where, like, when you kind of like have this superpower. So, anyways.
Well, and that's what separates the people that are able to be successful from those that aren't, is that you're willing to put in the time, you're willing to put in the homework, You're willing to go knock on people's doors. You're willing to go structure deals. You guys like, hey, I'm better off just paying this guy what he wants rather than trying to haggle with him on it, potentially lose the deal because someone else comes in, and you knew there was all of this potential profit sitting on the table with it. And so you went and did the work.
Yep.
And then later on, he was upset about it because he was unwilling to do those things.
Well, it's like,
it's a great lesson.
how am I supposed to like educate you on everything? And there was a little bit of risk. Like, what if the city said no for some reason? You know?
Yeah.
But another one that was really similar was this guy. He's like, you can't split it. I've already tried. And I'm like, and I knew you could, but you had to shave off part of the house, right? Well, nobody wants to shave off part of their house. But
like, explain what do you mean by when you say shave off part of the house?
Legitimately, like, cut the house in half, right? Like, you got to.
They were only going to allow a certain square footage
It was all about
per
setbacks.
lot size, and then the setbacks.
Yeah, it was all about setbacks. So to put the common drive in, you had to be back a certain amount of feet from it. So you had to go into the house about 7 feet.
Okay.
And so like people are like, "Wow, that's
So you're literally buying this house and
yeah,
sawing off 7 feet of it.
yeah." But I knew we could do it, and it would be a little weird, and it was. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't weird enough to like ruin the thing.
Yeah.
And you just lost this like hallway. It wasn't that big of a deal. But anyways, that was another one where like,
But you're putting in that homework. Like,
who
you wouldn't
knew
have known
you
that.
could have done that? I'm like, well, I asked the city multiple times, like, so you're telling me if I bring the house back here, I can do it, you know?
Yeah.
So, and that was actually
And you're doing all this ahead of time before
Yeah.
you actually buy the piece of property.
Yeah.
Right? You're putting in all this homework. Like, that's the point I want to drive home
Yeah.
over and over again, right? It's like, oh, hey, I didn't go buy it and then hope that I could go do this. You were doing your homework ahead of time before you're getting yourself into the deal, which
Yeah.
I'm sure you probably learned along the way.
We did.
But
And the other thing about that was it was not that it was easy by any means, but at the time, not to get into the details because they're not important, but if it was still original subdivision before 1967 and it had this particular zoning and it had this particular size of lot and you could make the driveways this particular size, you could do it. Like, they would never say no. Yeah. They've changed it since then. It's a little bit more challenging. But so we knew these parameters, and all we had to do was just go find these parameters and then find the deals that would match.
and so you had a partner working with you as
Mm-hmm.
well. You had someone else.
And he was a fantastic, he was a bulldog. Like, he was just not like as an aggressive person. He's not an aggressive person at all. He's relentless, and he just constantly, he loves finding deals. Like, his superpower is finding the deals. He's not a finisher. He would tell you that. I'm not even like making fun of him or anything.
Yeah.
But he's a finder, and I'm the finisher.
Yeah.
So we are a really, really good
Yeah.
combination that way.
Yeah, he was the proverbial dirt dog, right? Like,
Loved
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Okay, so as you kind of transition through your career, moving forward, like what were some of those landmarks, benchmarks, like key experiences that happened throughout your career that you felt like, okay, this was like a career defining moment. This was something that took me to a new level or opened up new doors, or something that you learned or read or studied, or, you know, someone that made an impact in your life that helped you get to that next level, right? Like, obviously you don't want to be, you know, knocking on doors and trying to do, you know, rip and flips like the
Yeah.
whole way through your career. And so, you know, you eventually kind of moved out of that. What did that,
Honestly,
how
it
that
was-
process kind of,
It was 2009. Like, it was like just getting whacked, right? Like, it was one of those things where nothing went wrong from a business sense for about 7 years, right? And you're like, man, I'm really smart. And then all of a sudden you're really dumb. Like, nothing's going well. Like, you know, these houses are sitting, all of a sudden prices are falling like crazy. Your commission income is not very good anymore.
were you sitting on some properties at the
Oh, yeah.
time that you had tenants in?
Yep.
And okay.
And these tenants, like, it was tough because these tenants, they didn't just stop paying rent, they moved out of the state. And I'd always been taught that, hey, if the real estate market ever slows down as far as sales are concerned, or prices or values, the rental market's gonna go up.
Increase, yeah.
It's not true, because what happened was, like, economics are not just A and B. They moved. They had to go to better opportunities.
Yeah.
Like, they went to Phoenix, they went to Chicago, they went to California, they went with where more jobs were located. So we were feeding our rentals for a while, and it was tough. Like, it was like, and finally we get some more steady rentals or more steady income, and people were sticking around. But there for a while, it's like you just get a call from a tenant like, I'm out of here. And they're like, I'm like, what about your lease? Like, yeah, I'm out of here. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but that was a good
Good
time.
luck enforcing it. Like, you have
Good
no
luck
idea where
enforcing
they're
it.
going,
Yeah. Find me in this next state, you know?
Yeah.
But the thing that was so good about that time in retrospect is, so you had the financial crisis, But then we also had our own health issues too. Like my wife was pregnant with McKay, and it was crazy because like he was all of a sudden trying to be born at 18 weeks, which of course you would not be viable.
Yeah.
So she's on bed rest for, gosh, from 18 weeks to 30 weeks for 12 weeks. And so at that point, it's just like, you're really doing some soul searching. Like, it's like, man, like business isn't going well. I mean, I could lose a child here. I really don't know what to do. So it was kind of during that time period where I got really, really locked in and serious, where I kind of stopped just kind of like doing things that were more or less easy, and just like, all right, if I'm going to redefine this, I'm going to do it my way. What should it look like? And there's actually a friend of mine, I'm selling his condo right now, but Russell Brunson, who's a fantastic guy, he actually had this class that I got invited to. I don't know how, luckily, but
which we need to get Russell on here.
He's a stud. Yeah, great guy. But he had this class, and it was like this 2-day class, and he's just like, if you could do whatever you wanted to do, if you were 10 times smarter than everybody else, what would you do? And so I'm just like writing for like, a long time, and like, I'd start a brokerage. I'd start focus on luxury real estate. I'd build my network as good as I possibly can. I would do the, I just started like, and I'm like, and then he basically, over 2 or 3 days, he's like, well, what's holding you back? Why are you not doing that? It's like, good question, And that time, although it was challenging, and it really was for many different reasons, it was like the defining time for me.
That's amazing, because the fact that you can pinpoint it like that, right? Like that experience, that time, you have all these challenges happening in your life. I think a lot of people look back on that time and kind of identify the economic issues, but the fact that you had all these personal issues and things that were contributing to that made you step back and be in a situation where you were willing to learn, right? And I think that sometimes when people are successful, that becomes their greatest weakness, is that they achieve a certain level of success and then they become complacent, or they think that, hey, I'm smarter than everyone else, I don't need to learn anything new. And nothing could be further from the truth, because a lot of things can contribute to being successful in the short term. A man can make money, but how long can he hang on to it, and can he grow it? Can he amplify it? Can he extend it, and can it pass on for generations, right? Like that's a whole different skill set to have. So, let's pivot back a little bit, and I want to talk about your family. So Madison, your daughter, is in college at BYU. Your son McKay, 14, he and my son Cannon are buddies. And then talk to us about your 2 youngest girls and kind of the process by which your guys' family grew, and what that looks like. I think that someone could look at your Instagram account and kind of be like, oh man, Brett and Meg, perfect little family. Like all their kids are so cute. They've got it all together. They've never had any challenges in their life. Like their life is just picture perfect on a postcard. Like what did that process look like for you guys, and how'd that happen? Kate and Allie?
I wanted 5 or 6 kids. Megan probably wanted like 3 or 4. Okay. So anyways, we settled on 4. But even with Madison, she was on bed rest for a while, but it wasn't like that big of a deal. But it was probably for like 4 weeks, but it was pretty strict bed rest. Yeah. But for McKay, like he was only given a 5% chance of living. Like when we went in, I mean, his head was popping out. They had to do like what's called a cerclage, where they literally like sew you shut.
Wow.
It was crazy. And she was typically just at home, but a lot of times in the hospital, like on all sorts of drugs, trying to like just make it so he just wouldn't be born. So he makes it to 30 weeks, which is great, but even 30 weeks, you're only 3 pounds. Yeah. So you're super, super small. Yeah. You could have eyesight issues, you could have all sorts of health issues, and he's had nothing. So it was like a huge blessing. But our the doctor who's literally saved his life, he's amazing, Dr. Lee. We still see him, he's the Eagle guy, fantastic guy. But he just said, like, this is not going to be smart for you guys to have more kids. Like, this is going to happen again. Like, it's progressing this way. So initially we looked into adoption, and it was tough. Like, you just simply, the adoption process is hard, just bottom line. You're competing with tons and tons and tons of people, and there's like it's seeming like no end in sight. But there was this group that's just fantastic, and they get you like so many opportunities. You pay a little bit more for it, but it's crazy, because then you get all these opportunities. And so when we first adopted our first daughter, she was born in Kansas City. So we went out to Kansas City to do that. Met her family and everything. Was talk about surreal. That was really, really interesting. Just people in just a tough situation all the way around, but still had so much love for their daughter, and just like hoping that you would do it. Like it was a really trippy situation.
How old was she at the time?
Newborn.
Okay.
Yep.
So you've like flew out like
Yep.
right as she was being born. So this opportunity had been identified ahead of time,
Yep.
and so you guys were able to be there. And
Yeah, we were there like 2 days later. So
Okay.
yeah, because
yeah,
because you're born, but then when the baby's born, they still have all this paperwork to do, and then there's still some like lots of hesitation on the birth parents, whether they actually want to sign everything and like make it official, which I get that. And then a couple years later, the same mother and father called us through the adoption agency, and they had another child and wanted to know if we were interested.
Wow.
And Kate, that was wild. So we agreed. We were very excited about that. But she was born super early too. She was only at 1 pound 15 ounces. So when we went out there, we actually thought that she actually may have passed away before we even arrived.
Yeah.
Because she had like liver things, and we thought she might have cerebral palsy. Like we were pretty nervous, and it was like like you're kind of like, what am I signing up for? But we felt good about it. So it was a wild experience.
That's amazing. So, so you're able to adopt both the girls, come back here. What's that process been like with your older two kids? How did that work?
Yeah.
That dynamic, obviously, like that's different for them, different for you guys. Like no one ever writes their life out and says, oh, hey, like, we want to have, my wife's going to go on bed rest. We're going to have premature babies. We're going to have this happen. Then we're going to be told, hey, you can't have any more kids. So if you want to have more, you're going to have to adopt. And I mean, that's not the story that anyone writes, but how did that kind of transpire for you guys, and how'd your kids handle that?
Our kids did great. It's not, totally, that's just totally normal for them. Like it's actually really wild. Like, both they're so fun, but it's like the playbook for Madison McKay has been a different playbook for Ellie and Kate. Yeah. Like as far as like just how you raise them, like they just come out different, right? Yeah. So like Megan and I always talk about it. Like we kind of thought we were like doing pretty good on the parenting scene, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, we need to learn. Like what do we need to do here? Yeah. But they both are like Ellie, for instance. She is a leader. She is a flat out leader. But with that leadership qualities, you get defiance too. Yeah. Those go hand in hand. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
uncontrollable.
Yes, she is. But she is fantastic, and she's fiercely loyal. Like so, all those things can, if harnessed correctly, could turn her into a superstar, right? Yeah. But they also could be very challenging, like from like a parent situation, like trying to like, let's not do that. You know what I mean? Like it has to be explained why we're not doing that.
Yeah. So your kids age-wise, so Madison's in
18,
college, 18, 19, and then all the way down.
Kindergarten.
So you've got college, middle school, elementary school, kindergarten.
Yep. Yeah, it's fun though.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So going back, the decision to start a brokerage, how did you decide to do that? Like you're learning from Russell in this circumstance, kind of to write down everything. Okay, if this is what I do, how much longer was it when you ultimately made that decision to do it, and what were kind of the circumstances surrounding that, and maybe talk to us about that part. And did you have the same business partner all the way through, or you kind of changed business partners and different things that you were doing? But talk about that.
And so it was immediate. Like I feel like that's kind of like one thing that I'm really good at is like if I make a decision, it's immediate. Like we just do it, right? So. But it doesn't mean that it happened immediate. It was actually painfully slow. Yeah. So when I first started it, I had a different business partner.
But you started the process.
Started the process. And it was funny because like all these agents that I've known for quite a while, they're like, oh my gosh, if you start a brokerage, I'm going to join, right? So I start the brokerage. I'm like, all right, time to join, guys. And they're like, yeah, I'm good. Like I think maybe later. And like
so classic, right?
Yeah. Over time, a lot of them did come. But it was interesting because my brokerage experience, I had worked at a small flat fee brokerage, which was really unique at the time. In fact, it was like one of the only ones that existed. And then I worked at this place called Specialty Group that was kind of more your like traditional splits, and they do more for you and that sort of thing. And I always felt like the traditional model was pretty broken. And I thought the flat fee model was the way to go because it was the most friendly to the agent. Like if you think about it from an agent's point of view, you have no retirement, okay? You have no set income. Yeah. You don't know how you're going to do or if you're going to do well. Yep. So you got to use that money, all of it, to buy rentals, to invest in the stock market, to use for marketing. So I always felt really strong that I needed my agents to keep their money. Like I needed to keep my money as well.
Yeah.
So we started in 2009. We brought our first agent on in 2010, and I kid you.
So you're starting in the middle of the recession, right? Like, you could not have picked a worse time in our lifetime on paper to have gotten started.
There was some unseen advantages though. One, nobody was that busy.
Yeah.
I could get people's attention.
Yep.
Right. We had a really flashy name, which was we had to change at one point. It was Boise Cribs.
Okay.
So we were in the newspaper. We were in like all sorts of cool stuff.
Free pub.
Yeah. But we ended up having to change it because it was actually hurting our business as far as like truly trying to transact because some people thought it was embarrassing. And I'm like, all right, I'm not interested in this. I want to actually get listings and work with buyers. Yeah. But anyways, it was one of the advantages was that people weren't that busy. So you could get their attention. So we were really hitting the phones. I was hitting the phones pretty hard, setting up meetings with these different agents. And they weren't like so dang busy that they could blow you off. They're like, free lunch? Sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the first couple of years, we probably brought on like maybe 6 or 7 agents per year. I mean, it was slow.
And you're just spending money on lunches left and right.
Yep.
Right? Trying to talk to people, trying to get time.
Yep. And to put that in perspective, like this year we've brought on close to 40 already. Wow. You know what I mean? Like, of course, we have people who leave too or go inactive,
but your brokerage, you're up to what, over 300 agents now?
Yeah, 320 agents.
Wow.
Yep. So, but you couldn't even get people to pay attention to you back then. Like, it was just one of those things where you have this is the most fascinating thing about the brokerage world. You have certain people who wanted to come on when you were small because they wanted additional attention.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, those are the people who don't want to be with you when you get a little bit larger.
Yeah.
Okay. And then but by and large, people want to come to you when you're not a risk anymore, right?
Yeah.
When they're kind of like, you're tried and true, you haven't screwed up, like your reputation's really good.
Yep.
But they weren't willing to come on when your reputation was young and you hadn't proven anything yet.
Yeah.
So that's even 15 years in, I feel like people are still hearing about us, and like that reputation has done so well for the last 15 years, and now it's starting to like hit more like mass appeal.
Yeah. So as you've brought on more agents, what were some of the challenges that you had to overcome in the business as the business started out in its infancy versus what you deal with now as it's more mature, grown? Maybe kind of talk about that, what the challenges looked like early on versus what they are today.
Before, I mean, it was rough because everything was a paper file, okay? So you needed literally we were running out of room because you had to keep paper files for 7 years.
Yeah.
So we had these just huge boxes everywhere.
Totally.
And now technology.
And they're done that. That was one of my jobs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now tech is
in high school. Yeah.
so easy that we can have 200 transactions in a month and we never see a single paper. Yeah. It's amazing that way. That was one of the biggest challenges. And then of course staffing is never easy. Like I have the most fantastic people of all time now, but it was a real challenge before. Real challenge.
So you're trying to find good people. Mm-hmm. Obviously, when you're starting out, it's difficult to recruit and retain high quality people. The more dynamic your business becomes, the more well known you are. Obviously, that becomes easier over time. But there's always challenges with hiring and keeping people, and employees are your greatest benefit, but they're also the biggest struggle of owning any business. So a lot of changes have happened in the real estate world recently, last year, with changes with compensation for agents. Maybe talk about that for people that may not be aware of the changes with structuring and compensation and what that looks like now, and how you guys have worked through that, and maybe what you've done to combat it, or ideas and strategies that you've employed that have made you guys successful.
Yeah, so there was this big class action lawsuit nationwide, and I thought it was going to actually hurt commissions. I did. Although Idaho is one of the 13 states who had a buyer representation agreement, and we were kind of above board for a long time. The whole class action lawsuit is really fascinating because it was alleged that sellers didn't know they were paying a buyer's commission, which is, come on, look at the buyer's look at this closing statement. It shows right there. Regardless, what has actually happened is buyer side commissions have actually gone up, which is really surprising.
Yeah.
But the reason is because it's written into the contract. Okay. So it's literally written if I'm a buyer's agent and I write a contract on a listing, I request what I want. Okay. So before, whatever the MLS said is what you had to take.
Yeah.
Now I request it. So they can, of course, counteroffer me and say, no, like, I don't want to pay you that, or I want to pay you less. But it's part of the negotiation now.
Yeah.
So now we just counter back or something and say, no, that's what we want.
So how have you worked that with, let's say you're representing a buyer and you're trying to get terms that are favorable for them, but you're also trying to get terms that are favorable for you.
Yep.
And how do you keep that from being a conflict of interest where maybe you're able to get your buyer what they want, but maybe you can't get what you want?
It definitely
How do you
happens.
structure that?
Yeah, that definitely happens. But the cool thing is you're just having more realistic conversations right up front.
Yeah.
So you're like, listen, like, Cam, like,
With the buyer?
with the buyer.
Yes.
Yep. And with the other side. Like, one of them that we wrote the other day, they had let me know the compensation was much less. And I just said, listen, great, but I've already told my buyer, like, here's what our bare minimum we're going to work for is. So you as a seller are just going to ask my buyer to pay more, okay? And if that's the case, it makes your offer look less appealing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put the commission in that I want because that's what we've agreed to with the buyer, and I hope that works for your seller. But here's the reason. And if it's not, then it just makes the deal less attractive for everybody.
Yeah.
So what's been challenging is you just have to have more conversations up front, more direct conversations, as opposed to kind of like, and I appreciate it, I like it way better, as opposed to like, you don't really know how much I'm making, you don't really know how I'm getting compensated.
Yeah.
None of that. All that stuff's off the table now.
Yeah. It's eliminated a lot of the ambiguity to it. So if you're going to help educate potential buyers or sellers in what sorts of questions they should be asking or things that they should be talking to their agent about up front, or as you're evaluating, okay, which agent am I going to have represent me? What are things that they should be doing? Let's maybe start from the buyer perspective first. If you're a first-time buyer or second-time buyer, newer to the real estate world, what are things that they should be asking and what are questions that they should be looking to get answers on with their potential agent?
Yeah. The cool part about that is like all the discussions have to be had now up front. So a buyer can't even view a home anymore without signing this addendum that allows you to view the home, right? So the coolest part for sellers is that no unrepresented person is ever in your home. So that's one of the best changes by far. It's awesome. And when you sign that addendum, that's when you first have to have the first compensation agreement, conversation.
Yeah.
So you're already starting to get the ball rolling, right? So the conversation is pretty simple for the buyer. They just need to say, like, in the event that the seller's not offering to pay you anything, how are we going to make this right between us?
Yep.
That's it.
And is that experience, in your experience, coming from the agent initiating that conversation, right? And like, so as a real estate professional, you should be initiating that conversation with your potential buyer and just saying, hey, look, if this isn't covered on their end, here's what my minimum fee would be in order to do that. And then your potential buyer can just say, either that works for us or it doesn't. And maybe they walk, maybe they continue to work with you.
I'm working with these first-time home buyers right now. They're fantastic, but they really have no extra dollars, okay? So I just said, hey, in the event that these guys, the sellers, are not offering a commission, do you even want to see the house? No, I do not, Brett. I do not want to see it because we do not have any extra dollars to do it. So you have to get your fee from them. And really, that has eliminated 0 houses from what we're looking at. Truly 0 houses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's great. And then I can have that same conversation with the seller where I'm like, these guys are first-time home buyers. They're using a program where they're putting 100% down, like putting 0% down, 100% financing. They cannot pay, right? So that being said, I have an agreement with them. So if you want this deal, this is what you have to do.
Yeah. So even if they didn't have it written in, they would then, if they wanted to have, this potential buyer come on board, they would then have to amend what they have on their end and work it out that way. So from a seller's perspective now, so if you're looking to sell a piece of real estate, what are the questions that a seller should be asking or evaluating, and who they're going to have represent them, and what that commission structure should look like, and the pros and the cons versus structuring it to have the compensation included for representing buyer's agent and or not.
Sellers were the most confused by this, understandably. they thought they didn't have to pay buyer's agents anymore. But the truth is they've never had to pay buyer's agents if you didn't want to. You could have put nothing on the MLS. You could have put 0 on there. And then everybody has to come in and just figure out their own situation.
Yeah.
But if you think about it from a seller's point of view, you're trying to get maximum exposure for your home.
Yep.
Okay. And right now in this market, like 95% of houses are being sold through an agent. I can't even think of the last time I saw a for sale by owner, especially with like the litigious environment that we're in.
Yeah.
It's not going to go well doing that, right? So sellers thought for about maybe a month or two, I don't have to pay a buyer's agent commission anymore. But in the event they tried that, they just saw very little traction on their property.
Yeah.
So nothing has really changed on that side of things, because if you think about it, like every home value for the last 100 years has basically had commissions built into it.
Yeah.
You just didn't feel that way. It feels like your equity, and it should be your equity, but it's just the way that the game has been played for the longest time. So they thought for the longest time, they thought for a month or two, like, I don't have to pay this anymore. But the truth is you never had to, but your exposure just went way down.
Yeah. So when this first came out, this seemed to be, huge breaking news, a ton of uncertainty. Everyone's
Agents
like
left the
worried
business.
about it. Yeah. Like people are getting out of the game. As it's rolled forward, as this has kind of come into place, your experience has been that
Actually really positive, because these conversations were important to have anyways, and the good agents were already having them.
Yeah.
But having in my situation where I deal with a lot of broker disputes between like other brokerages, between our clients and our agents, it's actually been better than ever because those conversations had to be had up front.
Yeah.
It's really good for the market.
Yeah, no, that's great. What are the things that you see that separate and make the good agents from the bad ones? What are the things that you've identified, patterns, habits, ways of conducting themselves? What are the things that you've noticed that have separated the people that have succeeded, the top 1%, the people that have climbed to the top in the industry versus the ones that don't? Who are the ones that don't make it, or the ones that just kind of seem to sputter the whole time versus the ones that really succeed and go kill it?
A little background that was in real estate. Your first year had to be bad. Your second year would be slightly better. Your third year would start to get better and better, okay? And there was no deviation from that.
Traditionally.
Yeah. Social media changed it all.
Yeah.
Literally changed it all. I remember having an agent, this is like 2015, brand new, very ambitious. She is awesome. She closed $20 million in her first year. I've never seen anything like that.
Unheard of.
Right? And then since then, that's happened a number of times. Like we just had a social media training taught by one of our agents, Denise Ferrari. She is still relatively new to Boise. She's been here like 2 or 3 years. She's closed a ton of deals. She has a large team now. That you couldn't cut your place in line like that before.
Yeah.
Now you can.
Yeah.
Okay. So that being said, like the rules have changed.
And what do you see about that is, because everyone knows that, right? Everyone knows that, okay, social media, that's the game changer. You need to do it. But what's the difference? Like, what is she doing? What are other people doing that are making them successful in doing that versus the ones that aren't?
I mean, she is flat out executing.
Yeah.
That's what she does. So she literally posts a reel a day.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's so daunting. Like, what in the world? Like, even in her course, like, she made it seem so simple, and it truly is simple. It's just hard.
Yeah.
Right? But she's just executing. She's literally executing, and that's the thing. Like, she has these 3 pillars that she hits on. Idaho's awesome. California sucks. And this is where I used to come from. I used to be a law enforcement officer. And she hits those 3 pillars all the time, right?
So that's her target demographic.
That's
She
her target.
want people coming from California that are coming here. We have 18,000 people a year moving to the Treasure Valley, and she's trying to capitalize on those people coming in.
And people love her and they hate her, and she's good with that, right?
Yeah.
So that being said, the people who have done really, really well at real estate and have risen to the top, they have consistency. Because I used to tell people, I'm like, listen, I cannot tell who's going to be good and who's going to be bad. I would have a guy come in for an interview, professional, sharp, big network, like, oh my gosh, this guy's going to be amazing. Next thing you know, he's out in 2 years. Then you got this guy, I won't name names, but I'm like, he's not going to make it.
Yeah.
Guy's working part-time at Walmart.
Yeah.
He is crushing it because he's literally just following the plan. Like, you put your marketing plan together and then you execute. It is that simple. Like, if you do the work, you'll be good. Like, no exception.
What does a marketing plan look like for a new real estate agent? Like, what are the things that
Yep.
you're coaching them to do, or that, you know, they should be working toward if they're going to be successful?
So we have this marketing triangle, okay? So the top of the triangle is your top 100 people. These people are your referrers. And it takes you a lifetime to find the exact perfect ones. But these people will always refer you business. It may be one person a year, maybe two people per year. But if you don't know them already, you need to get to know them, okay? So the idea is to stereotype the best people you possibly can and get to know them in a great way. When I went to this exact same training I was talking about with Russell, that's when he laid this out. And I literally doubled my income in less than a year because I was starting to spend more time with people who were specifically going to help me with my business. Builders, developers, just really connected people. I started focusing on them and figuring out what I can do to help them and to be more involved in their life and me and my life. And all of a sudden, everything just changed because you went from these loose connections that weren't strong enough to really matter to really strong connections where you actually know someone well. So when they actually have a great opportunity, it's not just like this random fleeting thought where like, oh, that guy was like a good real estate agent, I think. It's like, that's a friend.
Yeah.
That's a guy I like. Like, I want to hook this person up.
Yeah.
So that's the top of the pyramid, focusing on these 100 people and just making them feel incredibly special. And you're going to have to replace them. You're going to find that they don't want to work with you. Some of them, they have prior relationships, whatever. But
And in real estate, it's tough, right? Because everyone knows a number of different realtors, right?
Yep.
Like, I mean, I could probably sit down and write 30 to 50 friends that I have, people that are in my network that, like, okay, he's in real estate, she's in real estate, right? Like, It's a tough thing to do. So of these people that you're going to identify, they also have other real estate professionals in their circle of influence. And so what you're saying is, hey, you got to go spend time with them. You got to build deeper relationships with them because that's how you're going to rise above the other people that they already know in their circle.
And I need to find the ones who are for sure never going to work with me. That we're going to be friends, we're going to be awesome, and we can still be friends with them.
Yeah.
But I can't be spending my time with them.
I'm not going to sink my professional time and resources into them.
Exactly. Then the next group down is your sphere. And the sphere is basically email marketing, social media, and then just straight up like text marketing, okay? That is looser. It's not as strong. It's not as strong. And then below that you kind of got envision a pyramid. You have these different feeder things like open houses, online leads, YouTube videos, mastermind groups. Like those are the less important things, but you pick 3 of those and really focus in on them until you feed your sphere and feed your top 100. Because eventually it's just sphere and top 100. But when we go through this, we go through with every new agent, is we're building out their marketing. You have to do it. Like if you're gonna focus on these 3 things, this is what your day looks like, this is what your week looks like. These are the numbers that you must commit to if you want to achieve your goals. If you don't, I can't help you. Like hopefully you'll find a way, but I know what works.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of doing it.
Yeah. And the people that turn out to be successful are the ones that are consistent with doing that. And it almost seems to me, whether it's in real estate or any other industry, that it almost becomes natural to them, right? It's like the people that are going to be successful, I don't know what it is, but you can just kind of identify that people have it, right? It's like, okay, this person has it. Like they get it. It doesn't matter whether this person was going to be a coach or a doctor or a lawyer or a real estate professional or a home builder or whatever they were going to go do. They were going to be successful because they have it. They get it, right? It's like it's natural to them. It's not like, oh, this robotic thing where I have to go talk to people and it feels so forced. It feels so difficult and uncomfortable. It's like it's normal. Like it just feels like anything they do, any interaction they have, any communication is just like another step in building a friendship or building a relationship. And overwhelmingly with no expectation in return, right? Like no expectations. Like, hey, like we're just buddies. Like you and I just met at the gym. Like we're just buddies. Like, oh, hey, our kids play sports against each other. Oh, hey, this thing came up. Hey, this thing came up. Hey, do you want to come to the football game with us? Do you want to go out to dinner? Do you want to go do this? Do you want to go to lunch? Like, and then it just grows from there. And
and it can't be anything other than that because like I always feel like you've got people who are living their lives. Okay, if you fit into it, fantastic. If you don't fit into it, also fantastic. Go find your tribe. Just keep moving. Like, because like there's people that are great and they're like some of my best friends. They'll never use me for real estate ever, but we can still be great friends.
Yeah.
But I know that I can't spend my professional time there.
Yeah.
It has to be the fun stuff. It has to be the stuff I want to do it later.
Yep. No, that's awesome. I think that's really, really valuable. So what are the things that you guys do to attract agents to Boise Premier? Like, what are the things that you feel like separate your brokerage from anyone else? You kind of talked about earlier in some of the structure with like fees and things like that you guys work out. For those that may not know, like, what are the services and every agent needs to be part of a brokerage, but like talk about what's the value that you guys bring? What do you feel like separates you? And what's kind of like that coaching and mentoring that you give to your agents and resources that you give them?
That's the biggest thing for us is like, we really pride ourselves on being local. So first and foremost, local. We're not part of a national franchise or anything else. Secondary, the fees, for sure, okay? But third is like the individual attention. It's like 90% or even probably even more of all the agents who join Boise Premier are referred by a current agent within our brokerage. Because like I am only one person.
Yeah.
I've never had a recruiter, so I've never done it, right? We've built this all organically. So like we'll run Instagram ads. I'll try to be active on social media. Like we'll let people know that we're an option. We'll go to the real estate schools. But when we bring on fantastic agents, they've almost all been referred by our current agents. So we focus.
Which says a lot.
We focus all of our effort into making sure that our agents. What I pride myself on is that if you're at Boise Premier, you will close additional deals that you would not close anywhere else. And I want to guarantee that. Because like we're gonna bring in fantastic training. I brought you in to speak.
Yeah.
I brought Blake Hansen in to speak. I've just brought Braden Shaw in to speak. Like I'm trying to bring in the best of the best to talk to these people because everybody has a different frequency. You know, something will hit and they're like, oh my gosh, that's it. You know what I mean? Because I think to myself, my life changed when I went to Russell's class. And people will be like, oh, I don't like what he teaches. I don't like this, that. It worked for me.
Yeah.
Like I will never say anything other than he is amazing, right?
Yeah.
But so you have different frequencies of what's going to teach. So I'm constantly bringing in the best people I can find to teach our agents. And then from our perspective, not that I know it all, but I've done everything and screwed it up one time or made it work one time.
Yeah.
So I've seen it, and
Yeah.
I'm infinitely curious. So I can help our agents in that regard to get to be better at other things other than just buyers and sellers, land development, JVing with builders. There's so many opportunities in real estate, truly physically moving houses off of one lot and placing it somewhere else. Like we've done that 6 times. So I just feel like that's where I can help is because I love this industry so much and I appreciate the individual agents. I relate to them so well that I feel like everyone should be a part of Boise Premier. But sadly, we're basically capping it around 400 anyways. Like the idea is that we want to be an exclusive, special experience for those agents, and that's it. You know, like we're not going to be 1,000 agents. We're not going to be 500 agents.
Yeah. No, that's that's really cool because the service that you offer is really what makes or breaks. Like you look back at people as they're getting into their career, often having a coach, having a mentor, having someone that can help guide you to where you want to go. I mean, you've talked about a few people that have had an impact in your life, and you look at how different that would be. And so taking that opportunity to coach, to mentor, to lead, to create resources for these agents, and really like you're just putting the honey out there and you're attracting people to want to come.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, hey, we're not going out with the intent that we're just trying to go take people away or headhunting in a sense. But the more good stuff you put out there, people are just going to be attracted to it.
Well, we're not a good fit for everybody, bottom line. If we wanted to recruit everybody, we would have already.
Yeah.
You know, like there's places out there that are playing that numbers game, and that's just not what we're doing.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Let's pivot a little bit and talk about a couple of those other experiences you mentioned, doing joint ventures with builders. You talked about doing the land development stuff. Let's discuss for a minute some of those opportunities, things that you've done, things that you've been able to be successful with, or things that you coach and mentor your other agents on, ideas and ways to structure things.
Yep.
Moving forward like that.
So when we were doing Cabin Ridge Estates, which was 200 homes on Meridian and Victory, the developer, a dear friend of mine, awesome guy, and he's ahead of his time, he's brilliant, but he had these stubborn lots that wouldn't sell. We just couldn't sell them. And so he's like, I'm going to bring in a builder. I'm going to bring in a few builders, and I'm going to subordinate the lot, and then we're going to split the building profit. And I'm like, no one's going to agree to that. I'm like, dude, they're going to do all the work and split the profit with you? He's like, they'll agree to it. There's like a lot of people that'll want to do it. So I watched him do about 10 of
They
them
don't
in a
have to go by the
row.
lot.
And I'm like, holy cow, like this is impressive. So like I said, I do not pride myself on being smarter than other people, but I can model behavior with the best of them.
Yeah.
So if I see somebody who's in good shape, what are you doing? If I see someone who's making money, what are you doing? If I see someone who has a great opportunity, what are you doing? Let's figure this out. So I've used the exact same thing now, probably 20 or 30 times.
You and I even looked at doing a deal like that. Yeah.
And what I found was that everybody has different motivations. So one of the best builders I use, he can do a certain amount per year by himself, and he does not want me in on those ones, okay? But he can expand his business by letting me help him on 5, or 6 per year. So you just have to understand everybody else's motivation. Like they have motivation and not having to go obtain financing because they can't or they won't. There's a certain load they just want to stay under.
Yeah.
So I learned it by watching someone who needed to kind of move these lots and needed to be creative in doing it. But now we've set up these deals traditionally where we just bring in a fantastic builder, then we fund the build, and then we split the profits 50-50.
So you've been able to create a niche that way of saying, hey, here's this lot. We can go build on it, find something that works for them, works for you. There's benefit to both of you on the front end as well as on the back end of the deal, and move forward that way. And then parlaying that into your development options as well.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that. I know you have a couple different
That's like
developments that you're in the middle of.
That's a love-hate relationship. So yeah, have done quite a few developments, and my strength is the actual development of it is so dang hard. Like we bring people on
Getting through the entitlement phase and
working with the cities, negotiating back and forth with ACHD, talking to the city of Cuna, city of Caldwell, these things. I'm pretty good at finding the deal and making sure it works, but the actual pushing through it is not my.
Well, let's talk about that. Like, what sorts of things do you find problematic with that? We want to talk about affordable housing. That's a huge buzzword right now. People are concerned about prices of real estate. People are concerned about their ability, number one, for them to ever own a home or for their kids to be able to own a home. What does that look like? These other states with people coming here have overregulated, in my opinion. They've overregulated so heavily that it drives costs up, and that's a huge part of the reason why people are leaving, right? Like they're leaving for political issues and for other things like that. But your costs increase. Like simple economics is that when you suppress the supply and the demand stays where it's at, that the cost is going to go up, right? So if you have a continuous demand but you're suppressing the supply, then the price is just going to go up and up and up, right? If your demand outpaces your ability to supply, the price is going to continue to go up. And so, it used to be, it was not even that many years ago where you could go apply for a building permit and you could get it in the same day. And now it's months, right? Like in some cases it's 3, 4, 5 months to get a building permit, right? Like in some cases you may be fortunate and get it in 2, but talk about that process working with municipalities. So I think that most people are well-intended, but a lot of times you see the regulation and, wanting things changed over and over and over again, and planning and zoning committees or city councils wanting things changed, wanting things revised. And I'm 100% for responsible growth. Like, I mean, that is, a drum that I beat constantly. But talk about your experience in like that regulatory process and going through entitlements and how that drives costs up with the time delay, the financial component, need to add more amenities or decrease, the number of lots or things like that. Maybe talk about that from your experience.
So in broad terms, like pricing's never going to go down.
Yeah.
Like if we see like a price decrease of like 10% for some catastrophic thing of job loss or divorce or something like that, it's going to go right back up.
Yeah.
And the reason is because the inputs are so bad. Okay. So we would buy land at a particular price. Let's just say at one point it was $50,000 an acre. Now it's much, much more.
Yeah.
We could develop. So once you've parceled it off and you have them parceled off, all the improvements to get it to a lot, not that you've built anything, but to get it to a lot, which is road, sewer, water, streetlights, mailboxes, it would cost $30,000, okay, per lot. It's $70,000.
Regardless of the size of the lot.
Yeah.
Basically, right? Like in
and I'm
in
talking
broad
like
terms.
just a standard lot.
Yep.
Okay. It's 70 for the improvements.
Yeah.
Okay. So now if you buy the land and now you're into that lot, like 120.
Yep.
Now you got to sell it to a builder.
You used to be into it 80. Now you're into it for 120.
Yep. So now I got to sell it
gotta
to a
make money
builder
on
and
it.
make some money. So now I got to sell it to them easily. I've got to sell it to them at 160.
Yeah.
Okay. For a standard lot.
Yep.
Pricing, there's no way that those initial inputs can come down because we'll get bids from every single person under the sun.
Yeah.
And they all come within about 10% of each other.
Yeah.
So how do you drive down all that stuff?
Yeah.
I don't see how you can do it. No. And then land, you can't drive land down. Builders, having been on that joint venture side of builders, like some of them we've done quite well, great. But it's not like it's not like these monster margins, you know? It's not like 40% margins.
Yeah.
Like there is just not that much to be made. So if you take the actual, like just the sticks and bricks and hard costs of it, and that was your number, that is still going up.
Yeah. And builders take a risk too, right? Like you look at things that have happened with like the financial crisis of '08, which so many people at this point didn't have to live through in their careers. I mean, you and I both did, but people that didn't have to live through that in their career, and then COVID and other things that were supposedly like once in a lifetime type of events, but you know, we've had things like this happen. There's a substantial risk there. And I think that if you've been through things like that, you don't quickly forget about it.
Yep.
Right. And so those things have happened. You're factoring that in. It's like, okay, whether it's costs escalating, labor shortages, not being able to get materials or products, labor constitutes about 70% of your costs in the construction industry, and the cost of labor is not going down. In fact, the price of labor is skyrocketed, right? And so you're not going to see housing prices come down.
No.
So there's a macro issue to this, and there's micro issues. There's things that can be done at the local level with working with local municipalities. I think that city governments, county governments, state organizations, there are things that can be done that can make the process more friendly, that can help and want to work with development. Because some of the irony of this is that everyone understands that growth is inevitable, or at least they say they do. But then a lot of people are oppositional to this, right? Like, and that's one thing that I never want to be. Obviously, I make a lot of my money from being in the industry and the fact that there's growth and there's desire for people to want to be here. But at the same time, like, we want to protect what keeps Idaho, right? We want to protect what keeps the Treasure Valley what it is. We don't want it to become, I just spent the weekend in Portland and Vancouver and opened up the door. We rented a Sprinter van and fit all of our kids in and made the trip over there, and wake up the next morning, go take my girls to the dance competition, open the van door, a homeless person sleeping inside this van. Literally no joke, right?
How did you inside?
I opened the door. I think one of the kids must have like not latched because we don't have a van, right? So they're not used to like doing that. Go to unlock the doors, boom, open up the door, a homeless person sleeping inside, right? Like, we don't want that here. Like, that's not, that's why people want to come to Idaho, is because of, the beauty, because it's safe, because there's great outdoor things. It's a great family community, like all those things. But how do we maintain keeping Idaho while still having this rapid influx of growth and being able to work with the citizens, people here and municipalities? What have you kind of seen from your experience?
Okay, so that's a great question. I wish I had the answer for it. But what I see as far as challenges are concerned is, like, not naming names, but there was particular builders that, like, in the early 2000s were putting up an affordable product, okay, which is what we wanted, okay? But have you seen what those look like now? Some of those were like out in Caldwell where they didn't even have a door from the garage to the house, okay? Some of them have heaved up so much the concrete is just like...
And you have them all over the valley, right?
All
It's
over.
you have them in Boise, you have them in Caldwell,
Yep.
you have them in Meridian, you have them in Kuna, Nampa, and anywhere else, right? It's like you have these subdivisions that have been thrown up.
So with that being said, then we add more regulation. So you don't have that as much anymore, okay? So parking is a big deal. Like, you have to have more parking for stuff. So you don't just have like a car lot for a subdivision, okay? But then every single time you add something, it's an additional expense. Costs go up. Yep. And then pair that with migration. During COVID, we were 3% a year of migration coming to Idaho, which was tops of the nation by almost double. Utah was 1.5%. Now we've dropped back down to 1.5%. still in the top 10.
Yeah.
So where you're just adding people like crazy. And then take into account.
And who are those people that you see coming? Sorry to.
Yeah.
To,
I mean, they're still coming from everywhere, for sure. But it's primarily California, Oregon, Washington. But we're seeing a lot from like, East Coast. We're seeing people from everywhere. Florida. I have some clients right now from Florida coming in. And it's just simply to be closer to family and friends. They love Florida, but be closer to family and friends.
yeah.
But you take all that into consideration, and then our migration's still 1.5%. And then you have cities like Middleton who have like a moratorium.
Yeah.
You have ones like Star who don't have a moratorium, but they may as well. You can't get anything approved, right? Eagle's challenging. CUNA's really, really hard because they have sewer capacity issues everywhere.
Yeah.
We ran into that. One of the last developments we did, we should have been able to get 36 lots in. We could only get 27, not because of zoning or anything. They didn't have capacity for sewer, right? So add all these issues together, and you have a recipe for prices continue to just go up. I do like what the city's doing with these ADUs as long as they're careful with it, because that's going to be an important place. It's like Seattle.
Yeah. Talk about this. People that don't know what an ADU is, an additional dwelling unit.
Yeah, basically like a mother-in-law quarters. Like imagine like just a small area, like 400 to 600 square feet that you could place on an existing home. And they're making lots of zoning changes to allow those almost throughout all of Boise. HOAs can still kind of manage them, but like we're in Boise specifically, a lot of them don't have HOAs, so you can put them anywhere. And
Yeah. And so you see those coming up because people want to be able to rent that space out or, be able to Airbnb it or
multi-generational stuff too.
Yeah.
Where like you're like, man, I just don't see how my kids are going to be able to afford anything in their infancy as they're, just starting to go to college or just in their first couple years of work.
That product looks different, right? Like it used to be that you'd see these starter home subdivisions popping up everywhere. I mean, it was not that many years ago. I remember driving around the valley, being a delivery driver, and seeing homes starting in the 80s, homes starting in the 90s, homes starting in the low 100s, like homes starting in the 110s, right? It's like crazy, right? But it's like that was not that many years ago. I just looked up a statistic this morning. In 2015, the median housing price in the Treasure Valley was $210,000. Today it's $470,000, right? That's in 10 years. In 2020, the median home price here was $250,000. Today it's $470,000, right? Like 474. And so, the fact that we've seen such a dramatic shift in such a short amount of time, it's going to lead to problems, right? And so, and there's so many factors that lead into this. This is not a single facet problem where it's just like, oh, well, we just
do this one thing.
We need more supply, right? Just build as many houses as possible, build as many apartments as possible. I think that certainly coming out of the recession, we were caught flat-footed here in a sense where it's like things weren't being built. People were very restrictive, very conservative. I mean, one of the great things about Idaho is that it's conservative, but sometimes that can be a detriment as well. And so the fact that there wasn't inventory available as things started to move forward, then all of a sudden prices started to increase because there's all of a sudden this demand and people wanting to come here, but there wasn't a supply. And then COVID hits and all of a sudden people want out for political reasons. People now, before, one of the biggest inhibitors of people coming here was that there weren't jobs, right?
Yeah.
People couldn't find anything to do that was going to create enough of a lifestyle for them. So it's like, hey, we have to go live in Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Utah. Like, we have to go live somewhere else. And a lot of that changed with COVID, right? COVID changed the world. And so as people can now choose where they wanted to live, they could choose, hey, we want to live in Idaho for the lifestyle. We can work remotely, and this is where we want to be. All of a sudden, it brought not only the political refugees, but it brought people that just wanted to be here for the lifestyle and now could.
Yep.
And so you have this massive influx of people. So all these people are here now, and now it's like, okay, how do we handle this?
That work remote piece, we were a local economy for the longest time.
Yep.
If Boise, if we were to have lost Micron, or something would have happened, we would have been sunk, right?
Yep.
But we're not a local economy anymore. That work remote has changed it all.
Yep.
Like that's when we continue to see prices to increase because you can work wherever you want. I mean, I still have people that don't even work here. They'll literally go fly somewhere else to work so they can leave their family here. and then just come back on the weekends.
Yep.
There's a lot of that.
Yep.
Still is.
It still is.
Yep.
Yeah. I could think of a handful of people right off the top of my head right now that I know that have situations like that. The other thing is that you do have a macro issue, not just even in the United States, but a global issue. The fact that you have these multinational corporations, right, like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. For those that may not know or understand, so BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street basically constitute the largest entity on the planet. They own 90% of the S&P 500, right? Like they own Google, they own Apple, they own everything, right? They're majority shareholders of almost every major corporation on the planet, and they're buying single-family homes. Yeah. And that is the single largest contributor. I think that when people think like, what are my kids going to do here, right? And I attend some of these city council meetings and, see stuff and go to hearings and am around. And that's the thing that people want to say is they want to say, hey, like, how do we make housing more affordable here? And I just think to myself, this is not a local issue. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you could go build 50,000 new houses here, and it's not going to make a difference, right? Like, and the difference is because you now have these multinational corporations that are investing in single-family real estate, and it's driving the price up, right? And your dollars that you have invested in your 401k, in your IRA, in some sort of investment account, are funding these multinational corporations that are then subsequently coming and buying the real estate, that are pricing you out of the market, that are pricing your kids out of the market, and it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And most people don't even realize it's happening.
An American Home for Rent they've been at it here in the Valley for quite a while.
Yeah.
They've just slowly been chipping away. Yeah, they've got, I don't remember how many they have so far, but it's a lot.
Yeah. And so that has certainly changed what the market looks like, and the market is different than it was 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. Like this idea, people just have to come to grips with the reality that for most people, the idea of owning a starter home, right? Hey, we went and bought this small little home in this neighborhood. Maybe we fix it up a little bit, live in it for a few years. We have a few kids. We, buy another home, eventually, buy 2, 3, 4 homes throughout the course of our life. Like that pattern is just going to be different now.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to come to grips with for people that maybe saw that as being their traditional future, or maybe saw that as, hey, this is what I want for my kids. For a lot of people, that's not going to be reality unless you're really intentional about it. And so for me, like that was one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is, in your opinion, what are things that people could do about being intentional to set up multi-generational wealth, but doing it in the form of real estate specifically and creating opportunities for your kids? 'Cause I'm sure the same thing runs through your head that runs through mine.
Well, I love buying rentals. I have quite a few of them just because of just over the years. But lately I've been thinking, I wonder if these will be, if I'll just be like, kind of chipping these off to my kids, like making them make payments to me more or less. And I've been working with a number of people recently. Some of the people I'm working with right this second, they're basically getting like not necessarily like it's not like a gift necessarily. I mean, it is a gift, but it's like a part of their inheritance now.
Yeah.
And their parents are only like 65 years old. It's not like they're going to die tomorrow or anything.
Yeah.
But they're actually giving these particular people $200,000 to buy a home, and just kind of like almost like writing it off the ledger as far as like, when we pass, you've already taken this.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Which I thought was a really smart move.
Yeah.
Why not help them now?
For sure. Instead of like, okay, my kids are going to flush away all this money and rent somewhere else, not have the opportunity to own a house until I die.
Yep.
Right? Like there's something to be said for increasing the value of your life and your experience, and increasing the value of your kids' life now versus only investing for the future. And I think that that's a difficult balance for everyone to find. It's going to be different for everyone. But employing some sort of intentional strategic movement or strategy like that to be able to help your children. And if you're not, the likelihood of your kids being able to buy a home at some point in the future is pretty non-existent, or even for yourself, if you're not being intentional about doing this. And so, I remember being a kid, and the term $1 million was like a big deal. Right? Like that was such a big deal. And, there are even movies made about it, like the movie Blank Check, like, writes himself a check for $1 million. And, that term just seemed like it was thrown out a lot when I was a kid. someone was a millionaire, if someone had $1 million, like that was an unbelievable amount of money. And then you start seeing houses that pop up and it's like,
wait, that's $1 million?
that's $1 million house, right? And I don't think it'll be that many years before you will start to see houses that we look at today that are sub $1 million homes will be $2 million, $3 million, $4 million homes. Like that's what the future looks like. And with what's going on at Micron, with additional expansions, St. Luke's is spending $1 billion on their downtown facility right now. This opportunity for people to work remotely is only going to increase. It's not going to decrease, right? Like I think that there is people need to work in offices for certain businesses, but I think that you will continue to see more often than not. There will be more opportunities for people to be able to work remotely in different careers, and people making money through doing products or services online, and more people will choose to live here, right? Like this is not slowing down. This is not stopping. The secret's out, right? Like we were a local economy. It's not that way anymore. Like Idaho will be and will continue to be a destination place. In my view, what we've seen is only the beginning. Like it's going to continue to happen at an even faster pace. So it's like, okay, what strategies would I employ knowing that? What are the things that I should be doing today that in 10 years from now, I'll look back on and be like, I'm really glad I bought that piece of land.
Yep.
I'm really glad I bought that home. I'm really glad I didn't wait for interest rates to come down. I'm really glad that I went and developed this new skill set so that I could make more money, so that I could invest in something. I was able to parlay that into, future investments. What would be maybe one or two pieces of advice that you would give to anyone in that situation right now?
So, like I said, I've thought way too much about this. Like it's one of the things that even when I was 9 years old, like you're writing, I still have it. It's hilarious, but it says like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's like this picture of you as 9 years old, and it says like favorite color's red, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I said rich. That's it. And I remember my teacher being
This is why we're friends, Brett.
my teacher's like, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, well, I don't know, but I don't really care about that part. But this is the goal, right? But my favorite book that I've ever read is called Family Wealth, okay? And this guy, his name's James Hughes, no relation, but he teaches families of large net worth, okay? And he teaches them how to like plan for multi-generations. And the whole proverb is shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. So basically, you have a creator, you have the stagnator, and then you have the decliner.
Yeah.
Okay. And his goal is to make sure that everybody is on the rise, or at least doesn't decline it or stagnate too much. But his thought is that nowadays, coming forward, and this is a 10-year-old book or even older, but he's like, it's going to be harder to obtain wealth in 1 generation. This has to be done as a concentrated unit of the family. It's a really cool concept. If you can have one person that changes the whole game and sets up everybody, okay? But then he puts all these cool things into place where it's like, you don't just get to sit around and do nothing. Like, you're going to be an active part of it. Even if you're not necessarily a wealth accumulator, you're going to be a person who is going to be in charge of this, that, and the other. Like, we don't just make loans for anything, but we do make family loans. Yeah. It could be for school, it could be for housing, it could be for all these things.
Start a business. Yeah.
Start a business. But we're going to expand as a family. And I think when I read it, I was like, this is great. But it was like kind of more talking for like New York families, like how are you supposed to buy something in New York? Mm-hmm. Well, I'm seeing it now in Idaho. Yeah. I'm seeing it now in Boise. Like, I think that next stage is like, is somebody setting up the whole family properly, as opposed to like, hey, I handled me. Hopefully you kids figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to work like that.
Well, I have an acquaintance, someone that I know, that his dad had been an accountant here, had gone around kind of quietly buying up a bunch of different farms over time through the 80s and 90s, eventually passes away, and now his kids are sitting on probably in the neighborhood of $30 to $50 million worth of farm ground that he was an accountant, made a decent living, had a small firm, but, was not going to be able to pass on generational wealth like that. But, through being intentional about going and doing things like that, through investing, he was able to set his kids up for multiple generations, right? And so...
And I feel like the only thing I'm sure of going forward is investing. That's the only thing I'm sure of. I don't know what real estate looks like. I don't know what anything looks like. I don't know what AI comes and does. Yeah. But I know that there's opportunities in the stock market, I know there's opportunities in real estate always, because people need to live somewhere, right? So those are the skills that I've been most focused on. But that entrepreneurial skill for your kids is what I'm trying to install. Like, having them look at all these different business websites of businesses for sale. Like, you could make money doing a travel blog. You could do this, that, and the other. I don't know. These aren't things that I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
But there's a million different things that you can do. But it's that entrepreneurial mindset that solves everything, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally. And there's opportunities everywhere, right? Like, you look back 100 years ago, how much could someone differentiate themselves from someone else? How could you really get ahead of the person at the farm next to you? How could you really get that much further ahead from the person working in the factory next to you, right? Like, there were just limited opportunities for people to improve their skill sets, to improve their lives. Now, that's not the case. Like, there is information, there's opportunities, there's resources everywhere. And so anyone that wants to take advantage of that can do that now, right? You can expedite, you kind of use the term cutting in line, which I love. Like, you can go cut in line because you can go use hours and time that you have to go improve yourself, improve your skill set, go create a network. You can go reach out to people. You can go connect with people that you could have never connected to before by sending them a DM. Yep. It's like, you can go follow someone on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. Like, you can go get access into people's lives. You can go get connections to them. And simply by reaching out, you can go start building a network of people, and your opportunities to be able to cut in line are endless.
Well, one thing, a quote that I have written down, because I can get distracted, is it said, I read it. It's like in my desk. It says, "You can do anything you want, but not everything you want." Right? So it's like, I think to myself, I'm like, focus in. You know what I mean? Because it's like, there's so many opportunities, and there's more every single day, but you can't do them all. You just got to pick what you're trying to do and dominate that particular thing. Because I just think, like, if I was a kid right now, if I was in my 20s, my head would be spinning. Like, where do I start?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, love that. Last thing I wanted to touch on before we wrap up, you're a person that I look at, and I kind of consider not only as a friend, but in a way like a mentor to see things that you've done and been successful with. I try really hard to have a strong work-life balance, and some people believe that's impossible. I don't, right? Like, my businesses are important to me. My family's important to me. My faith's important to me. Being able to give back, finding time to balance all these different things, taking care of my health, like, those are things that are important to me. And I think they look different at different times in your life. But maybe share with us some things that you found, or how you balance that priority of taking care of yourself, putting yourself in a good situation, being there for your family. I know you coach a lot of McKay's sports, and you're very involved and around, and being able to spend time with your family while still balancing being ruthlessly ambitious and, working and growing.
Yeah. I think it's possible as well. And I just schedule things. Like, if it's on the schedule, I don't deviate. There's very few times where I'll deviate. Like, if I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to go to the gym. The only thing that I will do is, like, if there's something really important, I'll just move it I'll work out at night at my house, but I'm going to get it done. Like, there's only like 3 or 4 things per day that I will do no matter what. And I don't really care what time I do it, but it will happen.
Yeah.
And those things, like, they continue to move to move it forward. But the balance is really key. Like, I do not miss sports. I do not miss activities. I do not miss travel. I don't come home early from stuff, because I've got to work and stuff like that. But I think it's a couple things. One, it has to be important to you, right? I know it's important to you. I see your life, and I see it's really, really important to you. And then sometimes I have to share more than I want to make it happen.
Yeah.
You got to bring people on. You have to pay them more. You might have to, like, split commissions with people. You might have to do something to be able to make that happen so that you can really honor those times. Because, when you're doing a sevens tournament and it's all Saturday, all Sunday, and somebody wants to see a house during that time period, you're going to have to share.
Yeah.
That's how it works. But I see people struggle with that, and I get it because the time is limited. But I also think too, like, you have a lot of time in the day, like a lot. Like, if I remember when I used to drop off Madison for dance, like, I would either at that point just, like, go on a run right there, or because it's not a sport that I'm, like, participating in, or I'd go to the gym for, like, even 30 minutes, like, not a lot of time, but make sure it happens. And then with family, like, one of the things I've strived to do, I'm not perfect at it, is I'm trying to spend 15 minutes with each kid per day. And It's doesn't happen all the time, but that's the most important thing I'm trying to do is like get that one-on-one time with them. You know, ask them about their day and find out what they're doing, and you know, hear about their little 8-year-old boyfriends, and which for Ellie is a lot of them.
But you have to be intentional about it, right?
Yes.
It doesn't happen on accident. I think that's what I'm hearing you say, and that's what other people have shared with us as well. That in order to do that, you have to be intentional about it. You have to plan your time. You have to prioritize. You have to identify what is most important to you, and then not deviate from those things. And being willing to make concessions in other areas, like my kids are more important to me than anything in the world. My family is more important to me than anything in the world. My wife is more important to me. And so if that's really what's most important, it means I'm going to be sacrificing other things, right? Like, could I go make more money doing some things? Yeah, I could. But it's more important to me to show up as the best version of myself. And in order to show up as the best version of myself, like, I need to go exhaust myself, right? I need to go work out every day. I need to take care of myself. I need to, monitor what I eat. I need to be around people that fulfill me and uplift me and make me feel better. Those are all priorities that I have to have if I'm going to show up as that best version of myself. But none of that happens on accident. I think that the pattern that I see with people that are able to be successful, regardless of their industry, is that they have an ability to be intentional, to identify what they want, to go see it, and then to go relentlessly pursue it and to not deviate from it.
And on that too, like I couldn't have this balance with the skill set I had pre 2009, because I was kind of a little scattered and I was kind of all over the place. And it's like, you say jump, I just jump. It's like, here's this random thing, I'll go do it.
Yeah.
But when you really work your plan and you're like, all right, what are the things that are the most important? Okay, so it's building this particular business, working on these developments. They're the highest impact items for the either the least amount of time or time that I can like actually scale to. Mm-hmm. It's really, really important to be intentional, because it is very challenging to be done by 2:00 if you have to go coach middle school football, which was a blast.
Yeah.
And I'm going to coach high school football this year.
Yeah.
But to be done by 2 and to get a workout in, right? That means you got to be pretty dang good with the hours that you have available, and be pretty ruthless on what you're going to be doing during those time periods.
Yep.
And I know you're good at this, but you just have to be really smart on what you're going to do during those work periods.
Yep. No, I love that. And I love what you said about the skill set that I had in 2009 was not good enough to get me here today, right? And to be able to live this life I had today. We have this saying in our home that the answer to everything you want is to get better, right? The answer to everything that you want in life is to get better, whether that's to be a better spouse, be a better parent, be a better boss, be a better real estate agent, be a better marketer, be a better whatever your particular skill set is. The answer to everything you want is to get better, right? To level up. And so, appreciate you being here with us. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, your insights, your experiences. You're awesome. And I feel like we didn't even get into everything I wanted to get into, so we're probably going to have you back again sometime, but appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Cam.
Thanks, Brett.